Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Christian Whistleblower YouTube channel. So nice to have you here. Always great respect. And it's an honor for you, for me, for you to come here and be a part of what we're presenting. And of course, it's always a big crowd when Laura Eisenhower is with us. Everybody loves Laura. Everybody respects her opinions. And Laura, obviously, if you don't know who she is, I can share with you. She's one of the leading esoteric voices in the world today, in my opinion. Her expertise spans literally almost the entire spectrum of esoterica, of being woke. She's an expert astrologer. She's a world traveler. We're going to talk today about her just getting back from Mexico and some of the profound revelations and inspirations that she received down there. She's one of the favorite people to have on the show for the viewers, and definitely one of the favorites for the host. Laura, welcome back. It's always great to see you.
Thank you so much for having me, Jeff. Good to be here.
And I really mean all that. I think that you really are one of our great voices in the movement today. And I think that one of your strengths is that you're not limited to any niche. You talk about UFOs, you can talk about secret space program, you can talk about astrology, you can talk about just esoteric in general. And I think we need more people like you.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Now, you just came back from a trip to Mexico, right?
Yes.
Now, I was down there in 2001 or two, and at that time, we were still able to climb up the pyramid. So I was able to go up it, walk around on the inside, the little temple thing up there. Quite a profound experience. Unfortunately, I was nowhere near aware then. I was just a regular guy. But one thing I did get to see that I can still see it in my mind right now is we were there at the right time of year when the moon comes and the snake is like crawling down the pyramid, and that head of the snake at the bottom is illuminated, and it looks just like a snake who's crawling down the pyramid. Did you get a chance to go up it yourself, Laura?
Well, they have it closed off now. We did have permits that allowed us to do things that weren't involving, a huge crowd of people, people that were just showing up to visit the pyramids. So we got a lot of exposure to things that normally wouldn't be, available. So that was great. And they were possibly going to give us permission. And then at the last minute, they decided not to. I think a few deaths took place with foreigners, and then a lot of erosion happening. And so that was fine with me.
When I went up there, going up isn't a problem, but, I was, a lot younger then and was an athlete and, very, good dexterity, but coming down was really, really freaky. In fact, the person I was with sat down on their butt and did a butt slide all the way down. And I just finally just focused on the thing and ran down like I was running down bleachers at a football game, because it is really, really steep. And those stairs are kind of rounded off. So it's pretty precarious. It doesn't surprise me that they've got it closed off.
Yeah, well, Ekbalam, which is another site we went to, we were allowed to climb up those stairs. And I'm right there with you. The way up was fine, but going down, just looking down, just that feeling of dizziness. I used to not ever have that issue. And so I was kind of doing that little crawl. And then I found another technique and got down pretty quick.
It definitely is a challenge. Once you get up, coming down, it's a whole new ball game. And it's just so interesting to be up there. And even when I wasn't aware or awoke by any means, you can still feel that there's something there. There's a majesty there. There's a power there. And I'm sure that, someone like you that is sensitive and empathetic and open to things probably felt some profound revelations down there. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, well, okay. First off, what you were talking about as far as the light going down to the serpent mouth, that's the spring equinox and winter solstice that takes place. And what I think what was really interesting is how I got called into doing this. This Mexican woman got in touch with me. I guess somebody told her about my work, because I talk a lot about the Venus transits and the pentagram that forms in the sky and the whole process of soul alchemy, how that relates to our DNA and what's going on in this particular, ascension cycle that we've been in, which has, many different stages. And we're moving into a new, cycle in 2020. So, she called me in, and it was something that she felt called to do, that we need to do energy work at Chichen Itza. and something was not anchored as far as the pyramids go, and certain spots all around that, location, including Ekbalam, which is actually where we started. And so a group that she knows that live in Mexico City were a part of that, and then 4 Mayan elders. And so it was just interesting because
wow,
it mostly was all in Spanish, so I really didn't understand that much. Every once in a while, somebody would whisper to me and translate it, but if there were more English speakers, I'm sure they would have had a main translator. But I kind of liked challenging myself to learn more Spanish and have some really profound exchanges. And I was really amazed that I got to even share a little bit, because we would go starting at 5 a.m. and do a meditation and do some ceremony, and just that the lines of communication were open to me to share some of what I understood. So a particular thing that we were working on there had to do with the pentagram, and because of the Venus transits and the fact that they form a perfect pentagram in the sky, that have these cycles that are spread apart of like 8 years. We had one in 2004 and 2012. There has been this massive correction that's taken place, but much more on a cosmic level. We still have a lot of work to do on a ground level for the circulation of energy to really come into the Earth grids, and that's also a reflection of how that needs to come into our own physical body, our nervous system, and be fully integrated. And they were saying, and what I really liked is that you just know that they can feel it and see it, and I just felt really good about this feeling into the accuracy of it all. Not to say that other groups and people wouldn't have that accuracy, but the woman who organized it said that she had been there with so many shamans in the past, because she works there, she goes there all the time, and nobody ever picked up on the fact that there's something not right with the grids in that location. And basically they said it was thrown off the planetary grid, and the pentagram had been cut in half, and it was still reversed. So one night we did about 6 hours worth of energy work and clearing, and created this correction. But we first had to start in Ekbalam and work with this big kind of black hole. And I don't know if I can do a shared screen to show people a picture.
You can. Right down in the bottom, you see in the middle where it says share, that green folder or green little rectangle.
Yeah, and it's going to show like my email account like in the background because it's from an email, but I can just see if I can share it.
It's so fascinating to me while you're doing that you didn't just go down there as a tourist. You're actually down there to do some work. It's just amazing. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, it was really neat that somebody like her would have watched videos of mine, and she says, well, you're an expert, we need you here. And at first I was like, wow, this is short notice, I don't know if I have the funds. And then something just whacked me over the face or the head energetically, said, how could you even question this? Of course you're going, even though it was like 2 weeks from the moment that I received another email. And I'm like, okay, I'm doing it, I have to do it. And
excellent.
Very clear. I mean,
now, Laura, that top picture, that hole in the middle, is there a cenote down under there? Is there water under there?
I'm sure there's water, but this is not considered one of the cenotes. This is just like this black hole. And literally, this is probably the size of, like a basketball. I mean, that's how small that is. And that's, kind of what it looks like. So we worked some energy around this black hole. It was in some kind of reversal current, and we just wanted to get the spin going, anchor love. And it has a lot to do with, the Venus energy, the underworld, and where a lot of these reversal energies have kept alive sort of the dark mother reversals that have crippled the pentagram and kept it upside down. So they said that we needed to start here. And if we look at just the sacred geometry of the Venus transits, this is what it looks like in the sky. It's a sacred geometry of a rose.
Wow, look at that.
And actually, one of the glyphs in the pyramid show the Venus transits and this particular sacred geometry. So it was really just about pushing some of the barriers, blockages that are standing in the way of the ether energy really coming in, because this is a really critical time. We just had a conjunction with Jupiter and Venus with the galactic center. And the Monday that I was there, Jupiter was conjunct the galactic center, and then Venus coming in. So basically that connects into the cosmic ether. And because that's really hitting Venus on a really, powerful level, they said the timing was incredibly important to do it like right around this particular time. To just open up what we could for that energy to come through. And when the cosmic ether comes into our physical body and the planetary body, that's when spirit really begins to hold dominion over physical matter. Because without the cosmic ether flowing as the fifth element, disease, degradation, and just decay, really sets in. This is the great purifier and the great force behind turning the lead into gold of our physical self, of the planetary body. So we
amazing.
We just focused in on that mostly.
Laura, can I ask you one question? Can you go down a little bit more to where the this one, right? Yeah, that one with the pentagrams on it.
Mm-hmm.
Go up one more right here. If we look at that, and these are the transits, right?
Yeah, this is the path of how Venus travels, and this is the path that Venus leaves in the sky. I have other pictures too. I don't have them.
But it's interesting that in the very center there, you can see what looks like a pentagram reversed, and then the outer finished one is a print, the pentagram right side up. And of course, people that know about things that maybe aren't always as benevolent for us can recognize the upside down pentagram as kind of the goad and more of what we would call negative energies, and the right side up pentagram representing humans and everything in good shape. So it's interesting that, is there any speculation that even within the pentagram right side up, that there's still got to be some of that pentagram upside down power to balance things out? It's just being controlled, or am I way off base?
No, I think, to a certain degree, if we look at the mythologies or we look at the symbolism of the morning and evening star, it sort of got kind of stuck in this reversal. I think the whole idea is we're coming into this human experience, and in a sense, we're all fallen, but the word fallen tends to have a negative connotation.
Right.
There's definitely fallen angelics and things that separated themselves from, source. And then there's, us humans that are born with a bit of amnesia that are somewhat fallen in this whole larger story scenario of this kind of game of lost and found in a free will universe of understanding our power and how to use that power correctly. And so the inversion, I would say, is where the cabal and the power structures and what operates behind them has been working to gain control. When we look at the Saturn moon matrix and the imbalance of the masculine and feminine, it's really holding it in that reversal position so that it can harvest our energy and take the power, so that our elementals are actually going into a place of contamination. Because without having the fifth element and the flow of ether, that's where dark energy can begin to accumulate, energy blockages, sickness, illness, survival issues. It keeps us locked into our three lower chakras. And the manipulation comes in from mind control and this, artificial component of the moon, how that relates to Saturn. And so as it corrects and that ether comes in, it begins to dissolve those frequency fences that have been impacting the planet. It helps to correct the reversals, because the reversals are really about the reversal of a lot of these sacred geometries.
Yes.
Dodecahedron is a platonic solid connected to the ether, and it was put in something called reversal 55. Lisa Renee talks about this.
She's brilliant, by the way.
Yes. And these reversals have kind of, kept the stargates very plugged up and the circulation very, disabled, and certain parts of the earth grids, pulled apart, and, just all sorts of distortions, which really reflects in our junk DNA and what is keeping us from being able to unscramble those fire codes. So when we are able to complete this alchemy, and we're seeing, Saturn and Pluto coming into conjunction, which is, creating this shift with the whole idea of what Saturn has represented for so many thousands of years, which is a dark control system. It's dissolving that and helping Saturn to actually become enlightened, which on a higher level, Saturn represents teacher master, self-mastery, understanding that this limitation of mind control and what these reversal energies have done has basically robbed us from self-knowledge, because we've been looking outside of ourselves so much. So when we really understand that we all have a direct connect with spirit, and we allow that trust and knowingness to flow through our bodies, and we recognize that this is actually a cosmic event, it's not just some new agey philosophy projection of what the future holds. It's actually something that's taking place and that is available for all. And it's upgrading our DNA. It's helping us to heal and find our own healing power, helps us to ground. So the inversion would be like the root system, but without it coming back up again, there's no branches that open up. So we stay in that sort of tree of knowledge of duality versus the tree of life template which is what's being restored on the planet right now, which will help us to, move forward and really integrate the activations. And so this last week, with the amount of high level ether energy coming in, is really bringing up a lot of stuff for people. So it's nice to share that these positive aspects are happening, but some people are, in pain in a fetal position and feeling this massive purging that feels nothing. There's nothing light about some of these symptoms that can come up for people, but it's a mass deprogramming, and we're seeing it reflected on the world stage. I mean, there's nowhere anybody can run without seeing that Prince Andrew, even other politicians are getting more out there as far as the crimes against humanity. But there's still this battle between the right and left, and there's still a lot that needs to be broken down so that we, have a greater priority to protect children, regardless of what side, right or left, it doesn't matter. It's like, who is doing this, and let's stop it.
Absolutely.
So all that purging is happening. The crimes against humanity are being exposed. And when we move into 2020 and Jupiter begins to get close to Saturn and Pluto, it's starting a whole new cycle where Uranus even makes an angle, which connects with truth, the universal mind, and also the galactic center, going into more like 0 point. And I know these terms can be, a little weird, but it's just that place of, really being able to, receive and knock out mind control, energy blocks, frequency fences, and it happening on a planetary level as well. This is what ascension is. So that's really nothing that can be stopped. And they've been aware of this particular period being so huge for, humans to snap out of, this level of manipulation and corruption that has largely been disguised with facades to keep us conquered and divided. It's just, there's no way that we can be diverted and pulled or yanked onto, any other trajectory, I think, as a human race right now. Their whole goal was, let's steer them off this ascension timeline, engineer artificial timelines instead. Even though that's still going to happen on a cosmic and earthly level, the whole idea was we would be either, chipped, dealing with 5G a lot sooner than these threats that probably won't end up manifesting at this point. All these different mechanisms to poison us, which they've been trying to do. But as the power of spirit comes in, the physics is different, and it can actually transmute and neutralize a lot of these assaults. And so the timing is on our side, right in the nick of time, for this huge rush of powerful, powerful healing energy to come in right before, they've even had the chance to take these dark agendas to the next level.
Laura, I'm so happy to hear you saying that. And I'm sitting over here muted because I'm cheering you on. And it's so powerful to hear you say these things. And, I come from a little bit of a different perspective, different background, but yet even where I'm from and where I'm going, I can see that the powers that be are passing away, and they've known that this time was coming. And it really is our time to shine. And I've been saying this for a few months, and it seems like it's counterintuitive, but I really think that times are good and they're getting better. And it seems from an astrological, a spiritual, a metaphysical standpoint that that's true, right?
Yeah. And that's what I love, is to see the indications that astrology and these alignments show. And astrology obviously has been targeted as a pseudoscience. And one of the most important things people need to recognize about it is you don't necessarily need it. But if you're having a really hard time navigating this human realm, it can give us a lot of information about how to connect with our divine center, the galactic, the divine, and really to recognize where the blocks are. Because if we really need self-knowledge in order to become more embodied, that's a great tool to learn about ourselves versus giving it or handing it to somebody else, because we're actually learning about our own blueprint, the map that we were given in order to break free of the wheel of necessity to actually graduate from the zodiac and not really need it, because there's many different levels of how it works.
Right.
The lower shadow sides of the planetary energies actually keep us locked in the matrix. But when we allow ourselves to utilize or understand and integrate the higher expressions of every planet, it actually connects with the harmonics of the music of the spheres. And it starts to be like musical notes that begin to switch on dormant strands of DNA. And it becomes like this orchestra and play of music instead of these things that keep us in conflict. So with the 13th sign coming in since 2010, which is the sign of Ophiuchus, which is ruled by the ether, which actually is going to begin its transit November 30th, which is coming up.
Oh,
you're going to
absolutely.
have a huge blast of a real strong opportunity to integrate this stuff. And we don't really have to do anything but really hold space for ourselves. The thing is, I mean, I know when I talk about it's so complicated, but it's to almost shine a microscope on something that's actually really simple, just so that we know it's not just an idealism.
It
It's not
really
just,
does seem simple though when you talk about it, Laura. And Delaney Jones in the chat room, she says, "Thank Laura for me." And Harry says that you're the best at what you do. And Delaney says, "Thank Laura for me," because she's reminding me that we are literally destroying the energetic matrix, and we are, aren't we? We're breaking down the bonds, we're breaking down the energetic strands that you're talking about, and we really are literally breaking free, aren't we?
we are, and that can be very, daunting. And I probably used this metaphor in interviews with you before, but I see it like the zoo cage opening, but people are so afraid of their natural habitat that in a way they want the gate or they want to stay, kind of locked away. And that's why it's very difficult and threatening.
You
But
haven't used that one before with me.
Oh, I mean, because the thing is, people might think, do I have to adopt a belief system? Is my whole reality going to crumble as I know it? It's actually, you're breaking the chains and you're becoming more authentic, more of who you really are. And you're getting the missing pieces that you may have been, blocked from previously. And so this is something for each individual to celebrate. It's not something that you have to believe. It's something that you become. It's something you begin to embody, because, what's available is part of this energy circulation, a part of our own energy, meridians, chakras, organs, because our organs connect with the planets.
Absolutely.
And the stargates connect with our chakra. I mean, we're connected to all of it, our DNA with the earth grids. And so this expansion is just helping us to be in a greater, kind of power, and not an irresponsible power, the kind that's aligned with integrity. And so all the difficult lessons that people are going through is to make sure that if you're going to run a lot of power, it has to be in alignment with cosmic and natural laws, or else there's going to be some sort of correction that's going to give us the opportunity to learn and grow. And so that's all accelerating. And that's why, people might not be feeling all of this right now. They might still be struggling with attachments. They might, want to let go of, but not know how to let go of. And a lot of the things that the body is doing, I mean, dizziness, headaches, nervous system issues because of Uranus is an electrical energy. I mean, and it's interesting to see how much has led up to this, because we had so many retrogrades all this year. We had a Mercury retrograde in Scorpio, and Scorpio season, and then Pluto getting closer to Saturn. It's really like totally taken us into the dark night of the soul and into the underworld. But this time around, we seriously are coming out in a lot more embodied light, still grounded, and so it's totally the restoration of the tree of life. And I'm just stunned, because I think a lot of people were putting it on, more the date 2012. And I just see it as being more gradual, because it would have been too much for our bodies to take it in as one big blast, and I think the reason the window is so kind of vast and there is a pretty darn big window, is because there's an integration process and ancestral patternings that are being cleared, traumas that are being cleared. And it's interesting because not only
Laura, if you put a bunch of power into a grid that's not prepared, it's just going to blow the grid. So you have to gradually introduce it over time while you're upgrading the grid simultaneously. So that's exactly what's happening. I've never heard anyone put it so well. Thank you for sharing that with us. That's exactly what's happening.
Well, thank you. Yeah. And so old, programmings are falling away. And what's interesting about the 13th sign, it's the only sign ruled by the ether, but it's also ruled by Chiron, the wounded healer, which is an asteroid, which means in order for us to really benefit, and if a person has a question, well, what do we do? What can we do? We need to just be able to face our wounds with maturity and responsibility, and be proactive in what we can do to remedy it, or give it more of a voice so people understand what we might be struggling with, particularly in personal relationships and how we relate to ourselves, to really hold that space of, knowing that a lot of those wounds is coming to the surface. That's why people are so offended so easily. We've noticed, particularly on social media, everybody's just like, gets so triggered, but it's also good because it's purging up some old wounds that get really exacerbated. If somebody makes the slightest comment that might remind you of a trauma or something that somebody might have said to you at a tender age, when maybe you didn't see the humor, or it was actually done in a vicious way, so.
Great point. Great point. So even we were just talking about this on a show a couple of days ago about how when you're out and about, people are just triggered over nothing. They're popping off. They're giving each other fingers. They're yelling at each other. They're fighting. You know, some of them are even pulling guns. And it's so nice to hear you say, well, yeah, this is happening and it's true. And it's a growing pain, but it's actually emblematic of an ascension system, a symptom, not things deteriorating.
Yeah. Yeah. And it always kind of feels like things deteriorate, but it's similar to doing, you know, a detox. We can get kind of sick and have a healing crisis, but when we just keep moving through it and we self-correct, maybe apologize where necessary, or look at our, you know, selves as these triggers come up, we're going to come out the other end feeling a lot better. And the thing is, it's deepening us because a lot of those wounds have been shoved down and replaced with the addiction matrix of what can I grab to appease it and make it go away and just pretend it doesn't even exist. And so all that coming up to the surface is really great. But the thing with detoxing or anything that is going to purge, it doesn't need to make us sick. And what I've learned with physical detoxes is when you start to release toxins through, you know, taking something that's going to help to stir it up, and you want to take like a clay or a charcoal to bind to it to remove it safely so it doesn't make you sick. So I kind of look at, you know, the mental and emotional body in a similar way. Those triggers can cause fights, they can cause breakups, they can cause things that are way, way more amplified than they need to be. But if we could safely kind of nurture it out of our system through being more compassionate and patient with each other, you know, we can really hold the friendships and connections together. But the thing is, it's a lot can fall apart and then be rebuilt just with giving ourselves time to just reflect. And the most important thing right now is just to have the opportunity to close the door and hear our own, you know, internal messages. We're entering a new moon this week in Sagittarius, and everything is going to really be based on taking the higher road and connecting with the higher mind. And if we can, you know, stop enough in the face of adversity to really breathe into it and get the, you know, higher message, we're going to really see that it's a blessing and not something that we should fear or be concerned about. And even any kind of propaganda or scary stuff we hear in the news too, the biggest tactic that has really harmed us as a humanity is our creative channels being infected with scenarios that don't need to manifest in our future. You know, things being told to us that we gravitate towards and we believe so much that we actually enable it. I mean, it's good to have caution. It's good to be prepared in the event that something out of the blue might happen, but we really have to make sure that our creative channels are infused with our own instructions in alignment with.
And how do we do that, Laura? I know a lot of people, and I used to have this problem, and I don't know how I corrected it, but a lot of people play out these negative scenarios. Oh my God, what if? And you spend hours thinking of all the horrible things that could happen and that's blocking your creative channels, right? So how do we correct that?
I think we need to not internalize, because the thing is, there's a lot of chaoticness in our thought forms. We're going to go through a day and have really, really amazing epiphanies and realizations and insights. But then all of a sudden, a competing thought will come in and kind of tear that down and almost knock us off our center. And then all of a sudden, we're processing something maybe fear-based. This is kind of the whole idea of false flags too, is that we're starting to make huge advances as a human race. And when the vibration really starts to increase, or we really start to push through the seventh chakra, or we start to light up dormant strands, and we, you know, that's usually when there's some sort of psychic attack. And that feeling of defeat can all of a sudden put a person in fight or flight and kind of a survival response, and make a person very, very ungrounded and kind of out of their body. So the most important thing, I think, is to give oneself plenty of time for tranquility before the day starts and at the end of the day, and use creativity, writing, art, music, moving the physical body, you know, as a way to not keep things shoved in, because even our gifts and abilities are a part of what we're discovering when we do shadow work. It's not just always finding inner demons that we're battling, we're finding treasures.
Great.
And if we internalize even those treasures or the things that we need to release, it becomes toxic. So there's a lot of people holding some really, really amazing abilities that are afraid to let them loose. And in exchange, It's more, their inner work is about the fear, the pain, and the wounds and the trauma, but we've lost connection with our own inner antidote that could actually keep us from a lot of those injuries if we could find time in the day to just make that connection. For some, it's meditation. For some, it's just being creative. I mean, everybody's got their own way, but it's like, what really sparks passion, inspiration, and joy? What is getting in your way? Are you in relationships that bring you down? Are you with friends that make you feel belittled? And just know that the universe always provides synchronicities of upgrades, just like our physical body is always wanting to improve our health and guide us towards health and well-being. I mean, that's encoded in nature. And so we only get in our way when we fear what we're capable of and what our true gifts are. So when I do astrology charts, pretty much most of the time, a person's genius or creative power and healing power is blocked by Saturn, or it's in a hidden house. And every once in a while, they might taste it and get a glimpse of it, but then they just go back to whatever they're being fed, whatever projections, whatever they're seeing in the news. So I think if we just really hold space for ourselves, get, really excited that this awakening is an internal epiphany of like, wow, we're so much more than we thought we were. And we actually can co-create, our future. And there might be some loose ends that we have to deal with. There might be certain attachments that we might not want to let go of that are going to be good for us to let go of, but there's going to be rapid healing in people's physical bodies. And I'm not saying that the medical industry is all negative, but we have to meet it halfway and really know that every symptom that our body is giving us or showing us, even mental and emotional, spiritual, is a key to getting closer to who we are. And the best thing that we can leverage right now is adversity and allow it to be a doorway to greater wisdom coming in instead of something that causes us fear and pain that grows and more internalization of the abilities that become more toxic, which is why there's a death sentence connected to certain ailments. And it doesn't have to be that way because the whole process of alchemy really does turn lead into gold. It's natural, it's organic. We've been taught to just not be connected with it. And even on the planet in the last 26,000 years, the ether has not really been that available. But now that we're in alignment with the galactic center and the alignments are allowing this to pour through, and people are all over the planet doing grid work and their own inner work. I mean, this is happening everywhere. It's just a matter of time till a person really just comes out the other end of whatever healing crisis they are in and realizing, whoa, I feel so much lighter.
Right in the nick of time, right, Laura?
I think so, for sure.
And someone says that listening to you, Charlene says, listening to you makes all of this understandable and brings so much peace. And just to kind of finish up that one thing we were talking about, I remember Mark Twain once said, I spent my life worrying about thousands of things, and one or two of them actually happened. So we waste so much time on that.
I know, and I fall into that trap. And every once in a while, I'm like, geez, I'm running out of things to worry about. I'm so used to having something, that, and I don't want it to go into worry or fear, but there's something that needs to be solved, something that, but I realize worry is sometimes an anxious form of prayer. There's just a bit of anxiety connected to it, but it's really a prayer. You worry about it means you care, but we got to check ourselves because if it rattles our nervous system too much, then we're not really anchored or grounded. We're not in the now anymore. And then we lose the creative flow and our creative power because it's being divvied out and fragmented to places that aren't here in the, here and now.
Yeah. Laura, I've talked to you several times now, and, you've always been delightful. You've always, looked good and have been in a good place. But today you seem especially powerful. You seem especially energetic. You have a glow about you. You look especially lovely. You're in a really good place right now. It's a real pleasure to be able to share this with you.
Well, I really appreciate it. I feel, there's just.
You almost feel like I almost expect you to start levitating off your chair and like
that's funny.
Be in the lotus position there around the room while you're talking to us.
Oh, that's funny. I got a ways to go before that's going to happen, but I appreciate that. I mean, I do feel a lot lighter. That trip was really validating to my work, just to really have, even just, the elders, people that really understand this, really treat me with respect and
Laura, let's face it, we take so much crap on a daily basis. Just have someone call you up and say, you're the expert, I need you here, and have all these people of power and people of understanding validating that, yes, your work is valuable and you are an important person in this work. We take so much stuff, and you especially take a lot of abuse. It's got to be nice when people recognize and you say, oh, wow, this really isn't all being done in a vacuum. Someone is being helped. And they're right, Laura. You are special. You're a treasure. You're a gem, and we need you.
Oh, well, thank you. I really appreciate that. And I feel that way about, I mean, I mean, everybody carries something, you know, and a really important gift and a really important piece for all of us. And so it was just nice because it's one thing to speak about it. And I do my best to follow my own, I guess, recommendations when it comes to working with the chart and being grounded and being creative, you know, recovering from a lot of traumas and wounds myself. But it's just really nice to be able to put it into action and be in those locations to work the energy that I speak of. So that was, you know, a really cool thing because I really needed it. I really needed to have this, you know, take place for myself personally. And, you know, I think some of us, there is not really a personal without it extending to the global. Like, you know, our attention is so much on the global and the betterment of humanity and just doing what we can to assist in this time that that's what's healing for me, is just feeling that something really huge is happening for all of us. And we're all working that energy in our own, you know, way. And no matter how dark it seems, because I think sometimes people are afraid, oh, what if I have a negative thought, or I had a really bad week, and does that mean that? And no, it's like, we just have to embrace the process, no matter how ugly and difficult and gnarly it gets. I think this idea of enlightenment sometimes diverts a person away from wanting to face the stuff that needs to be cleared out. Maybe it makes a person look weaker, less advanced, and I don't agree at all. I think if we can just stand strong in the face of it and be somewhat transparent, we're showing a greater strength than pretending we have it all figured out and being, you know, because I'm the first to admit, yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of, there's been a lot over the last bunch of years, pretty much my whole life, that, you know, really slams me, and I got to do a lot of work to get back. And it's sort of surreal I'm even alive. So, and I know a lot of people have had that kind of journey as well, but it just makes it, you know, it helps us to realize, you know, what is really dying is not us. We're coming to life. What's dying are the things that have held us back, tried to stand in our way. And just because we question it and somebody projected that we're crazy or stupid for it, you know, they're going to see something, you know, really beautiful take place, and
Absolutely.
might fight it, but, you know,
Now,
I think,
Laura, when you guys when you did the energy work around the hole there, the black hole you showed us, like the basketball size hole, and you were doing the work there, you started there, you said many hours. Did you actually feel some things begin to shift and move when you guys were doing that work, or when you had completed it?
well, Ekbalam was not the one that we did for hours. It was when we went to do the work at Chichen Itza.
Oh yeah, please talk us through that, because it
Yeah.
sounds like you guys did this was real people doing real work to help the rest of us real people, and that you actually did some things that are going to open up access to greater ascension, for lack of a better word, to the rest of us. Please tell us about that process.
Yeah, so it started off with Ekbalam. We weren't actually there for very long, and the whole idea of being there was to correct this, you know, reversal black hole that goes into the earth. And it really, if it's in reversal, it means that it's being harvested. And so when we look at like the black cube that exists within Saturn and that whole Saturn moon matrix and the imbalance of the masculine and feminine, and the Venus energy really showing, you know, that mythical journey going into the underworld and back out again, but also, you know, the being dragged into the underworld by like Hades, or having that journey be overridden or conquered by, you know, some sort of false archetype of a negative, you know, patriarchal force,
Right.
that has targeted men as well. So if there's reversal energies, then we as humans are experiencing that, and that energy that we're not able to run through our system or even protect or ground, you know, is what gets harvested. And so it seemed like there was a connection with the black hole and also the black cube of Saturn, particularly with these alignments going on. It at least touched upon it. And that was kind of the intention that I was holding, because it has to do with, you know, the reversals. And if anything is behind that, it has to do with, you know, what's been blocked in our junk DNA. I'm sorry, what were you going to say?
No, that's it. I'm just saying that's amazing.
Yeah. So, just really giving it, attention. It's the same thing with us. When we're about to get a huge download or epiphany or a huge blast of our own divine essence, we have to ask ourselves, is our physical body up for it? Do we get enough rest? Are we arguing with somebody? Are we bypassing it by watching something stupid on television? Because we've had these opportunities, we have them all the time to really integrate something higher coming in. And because, the grids have been messed with, our DNA has been messed with, we are more linked to the artificial world. And when we're ready to get a blast, we pull the carpet from underneath ourselves without realizing it, and we put our attention elsewhere. And all those distractions are really what's been getting in the way. So where the planetary grid network has been messed with has knocked off some significant things off of the grid. It's sort of like what we can relate to in our own being, aspects of ourselves that we don't have a connection to, or that we might just judge and push away. So it's just kind of like holding space for the earth to be in a better alignment to receive what's coming through during this particular time. So we started there, and then we went to some other archaeological, sites, work with a turtle energy, and anchoring
a turtle energy.
Yeah, anchoring different points of light all over the place. I don't know how much I'm allowed to share because there's certain things that
I got you.
Aren't,
yeah, don't step on any. Don't cross.
No. I don't think after the fact, and we did have permits. Everything was legal, but there are certain areas that they took us to, because they obviously this is their lineage, and so they know places and took us, to certain areas to work certain things that were coming through to them.
It's so important to do it the right way, and hats off to you and to the organizers of your trip to get the permits and do things the right way and not go out haphazardly. I've been involved with things that didn't get done the right way, and they turn out to be a fiasco for everybody. So hats off, and thank you that you actually did it the right way, and you actually did some things that made a difference. In that long meditation that you did, was that out at Chichen Itza?
Yeah, it was
Tell us about that.
I mean, it was just really wild. I have a lot of pictures. I don't know. It just, the energy of the people I was with, was incredible. And so the woman that organized it, that had the vision, that pulled in everybody who were in agreement, that were, experiencing the same things coming through, how we all kind of linked up. And I couldn't really speak the language, but she would, she'd be like, you be the water carrier. So I carried the water around, and we're going from we're going to all these different places and points, anchoring light, and I'm holding the water. So I'm like, okay, if I'm holding the water frequency, I got to infuse it with all these prayers.
Wow.
And like, prayers to me are also something that require us to take action.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I prayed for everything under the sun, everybody that I'm friends, Facebook friends, everybody, humanity as a whole, the planet, my children. And I just, and just anybody who needs it most, because obviously, just really, I don't know, holding really, really strong intent. That was my thing for a couple hours. And I was holding the water. Then I had a pocket in my jacket, and she handed me the drum, and I love to play the drum. So I'm walking around the grounds of Chichen Itza, and I'm banging on the drum, and the sky, and I'm not saying this is because of me or anything, but it was just cool timing. The sky that had clouds completely cleared, all these shooting stars, and
oh, that's totally because of the work you guys were doing. That had to be part of it.
Well, what was interesting is I took a picture after we did one of the big clearings, and I stopped everybody, and I'll show you this picture. And I said, I got to take this picture right now. And they're all standing there. And I think it's still my cover photo on Facebook. So if anybody wants to check that out, when you look at the top of the pyramid, there's a light going through it. It's not a cloud.
Oh my.
And it's just this ether energy and this light energy. And that was a really good sign. But yeah, so played the drums, and then they started working on, the pentagram. And I worked a lot of energy around the Venus temple. And another reason this means so much to me is because my whole chart is Venus, Pluto, very much connected into, just feeling an affinity of, okay, because, there's always that, I don't want to say not feeling worthy, but just not, just feeling like, is this okay? And then just letting go and being like, this isn't about you. Let it, move through you, and just really just opening my heart and just putting my small me out of the way and saying, just stop that already. You're here for a reason, and it all worked out, and she's handing you this stuff. And then I did this thing to correct the currents and with the water. But what was funny is because we had, the ability to do this, they still had a police guy following us everywhere. But there were certain things that were still, able to take place. But and then I went the next day. I needed closure. And there's more that I would want to share, but it would probably be too much information. But Well, no, I don't know if I should, but, and I don't want to, well, okay. What was crazy, okay, and I'll just say it. My moon cycle had been gone for a while and it came back like right during which is a little bit weird. So I had to leave and I came back the next, yeah. And I came back the next day and then I got 3 things of obsidian and I just placed it around the Venus temple to really infuse the triple goddess energy, because really this whole thing is about the feminine coming back into power in alignment with the masculine.
Wow, that's profound.
And that sacred union energy. But yeah, I don't, I know that's a little, but that was pretty cool. So that went into the night, went back, the next day, and it was really kind of hard to leave. I couldn't wait to get back to my husband though and to come home.
Sure.
But it's just like a piece of me is there and it will always be there. And the resort that we stayed at was the most mind-blowing, beautiful place I've ever been. And so I would love to organize some kind of trip, and it would be amazing if you would be a part of it. But that's for another.
I would love to. I've been there several times, but it's been a while. I'd love to go back. I especially like the Riviera Maya, that area, which is pretty close to where you were. So yeah, definitely keep me in the loop. I'd be down for that for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, all around. I mean, I just think with the alignment of Venus and Jupiter, because Jupiter amplifies everything it touches, the Venus love coming in, and sometimes when we get huge blasts of love, everything that isn't love comes to the surface. Ooh. So I know,
Laura, you've mentioned Venus a lot. For our viewers, can you maybe expand a little bit on what Venus, and I know this is a whole hours and hours of study, but what Venus is, what it means, and especially right now, why we should pay attention?
Well, when we drop down into this lower density, I mean, there's higher harmonic universes that we used to occupy. If we start even from like Lyra, dimensions 10, 11, 12, that's when, there were Lyran wars, then it stepped down into the Orion wars and different seedings of humans took place. And we get a little bit more and more veiled from, true source energy. We got hybridized and, compromised and manipulated, exploded planets, fragmented our consciousness, and we dropped down in this lower harmonic universe. And it kind of brought in 2 harmonic universes, crunching them into one, the 5D and the 1D, that kind of like put us in sort of this 3D. But in that whole process, the mother energy, the 13th gate, fused or morphed itself into the physical planet, forming an aquiline sun that 5,500 years ago was not able to occupy the planetary body anymore because of all the cataclysms that have taken place with Atlantis and the root races that are different than what was going on when we were in these higher harmonic universes. But the root races and the cloister races, which represent 5 starseed families, all these different wars and battles happened to the point where the mother energy was not able to be anchored in the earth core anymore. And that's when we lost our galactic memories. That's when the pyramid technology went offline. We lost connection to our vaster history. We lost connection to our avatar consciousness. And then the cabal began to really work things from, and the worship of Baphomet and the reversal pentagram and all the ritual abuse, which has been very, very prevalent, the corruption of all these different power structures. The planet Venus kind of came in as the unconditional love of the mother that would form the sacred geometry to correct these reversals and to correct this fall that humanity took. A lot of individuals that are a part of that fall weren't behind the reasons behind the fall, but ended up collapsing. That's why a lot of people feel incredibly traumatized just being born here, that have starseed memories of being, on these other planets or exploded planets that are still trying to heal. And so the whole idea of Venus is like the heart of the mother who's not able to be anchored into the planet, that has been doing this sacred geometry in the sky, correcting the reversal of the pentagram. And then around around 2004 to 2012 was when the sun started to move through Ophiuchus, the 13th sign. That's when the mother energy dropped back into the earth and started to activate the 13th gate, the core energy of the planet. And that's really what it's showing is we never were on a 3D planet. The 3D is the mind control program. It's also our dumbed down DNA, junk DNA, keeping us only in the personality matrix. That's why we're so manipulated. We have to have these statuses, these labels. We're either a failure or we're a success. There's all these societal stigmas and fear of what other people might think. And then when we look at like Hollywood or the magazines, it's all very much, it's not soulful. It's very personality matrix.
Laura, is the matrix the 3D? Is it the same thing?
Yeah, I would say that the matrix that we were born into is the 3D, because we're really only looking at things from a very limited level. We haven't quite reached the heart. And when we do reach the heart, our heart gets hurt. We're all brokenhearted. We dealt with some level of betrayal or heartache. Yep. There's not even a safe place to be. So people shut down the heart. And the whole idea is that when we start to activate our galactic chakras, the universal love energy ends up downloading into our fourth chakra. It changes it from green to a blue lotus. And we start to activate an infinity spiral. And so that's what the 13-dimensional earth that we exist upon is helping us to do. But because that energy was gone for a while, we were in a very, very dark 26,000 cycle where these dark technologies like the Nephilim reversal grid and the diotic crystal, I can't quite, but there are ways to create reversals and harvest energy.
Yep.
And Lisa Renee talks about it. Keylontic Science has talked about it. The reason I talk about it is because I absolutely resonate. I'm like, that makes total sense.
It makes total sense. Have you spoken to Lisa Renee lately? I was trying to get a hold of her and she was in a sabbatical. Do you know if she's still doing that or?
I probably talked to her about 6 months ago and we talked for quite some time. She did put a newsletter out recently, but I'm going to actually reach out to her and I will let you know. And I'll tell her that you're
please give her my love. And if we ever were able to do anything together, like you were talking about with Mexico or whatnot, boy, wouldn't Lisa Renee be just the belle of that ball?
Oh yeah, that would be amazing.
That would be amazing. Yeah, please do give her my love and appreciation when you get through to her.
Yeah. So
were there any specific messages that you received in Mexico that you can share with us?
Just a lot of like energetic reassurances to my own physical body and really, kind of grounding in and just seeing a much larger picture of just, what's really lighting up. It's really, it really has just validated the stuff that I've been talking about for a really long time. And so it was almost just like having a gentle hand on my back, just saying, okay, you can just really relax, just, really, trust this process. And it was really, soothing to my nervous system. Because the thing is, my study has been more connected to Venus than anything else since I was a kid. That has been it. I only met Lisa Renee, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years after I became a public person. Then I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. And we, shared some information, particularly pertaining to like the Christ Sophia. So,
just powerfully profound stuff.
Yeah. So the feeling, I was just getting was I kept seeing stuff activating in the core of this planet and just how it just spreads itself through the tributaries of, the planetary grid and a lot of sites, in Egypt and Uluru in Australia, wherever we do grid work. But this just to me felt like the heartbeat of Gaia, the broken heart of the mother that exists, in this density, but is way, way beyond and is incorruptible. And as far as the fullness of all that she is, we're dealing with, Earth, underworld, and cosmic. And the whole Venus cycle is to reintegrate all these different aspects of the mother. Because if you look at the asteroids that are in the asteroid belt from these exploded planets, they're all archetypal names.
They are. That's a great point.
Of all these different stories of the divine feminine and masculine, and also some of the dark forces that have tried to get in the way, kind of the villain, when really the villain is our own negative ego. Because none of this is really outside of ourselves. What we're really doing is repairing the architecture within. We're creating harmony within ourselves between all these different archetypal forces that we can see just in a simple tarot reading or in our own astrological chart. Where do we have a war that still needs to be won within ourselves? Because a lot of these difficult aspects that we're born with based on our chart has to do with some battle that we might have read in some mythology that we might externalize when really we heal and we complete these myths within our own, story amongst each other. So when we're taken outside of our comfort zone or when we're facing maybe a narcissistic type personality, do we allow ourselves to emerge from that underworld they're trying to keep us trapped in? And so everything is very, very connected. The micro and the macro just, became very clear. And all I could see was every single human carries a piece of this greater story. And we all are walking this together. Some people might bring a voice to it more than others, but it doesn't negate the fact that every single one of us is doing this work because there is a template that each of us is trying to restore. But we can be authentic. We can be true to ourselves. We're not all going to be the same, but the unified field, which is the connecting point of like where we all can connect into spirit, is where we can have the agreement to have mutual love and respect and live in integrity and work to balance out these differences like an orchestra playing music. And so I just really felt into that and just held in my heart visualizing that this is, what's taking place, and it is taking place. So I more felt like what we were doing was complementary to something that's already happening that we're all doing, but it was just really kind of making a mark and really grounding it a little bit more. And I don't know if it like pushed an acceleration, but all of this awakening is inevitable. But I think it just kind of helped to ensure that there wasn't, places that it couldn't reach. And so we got to be really gentle with ourselves and really, hold space, because, it's the same sort of thing. Sometimes people don't know how to be loved or know how to have intimacy. They want to run the other way. Sometimes the best and most powerful medicines we refuse, and we choose to grab something toxic. And so this is really a time to break a lot of destructive patterns. And so that's what I really felt was a lot of that, almost like splinters flying out of everything in all sorts of places on the planet and within people. And that darkness, that even like that synthetic black goo, being like the substance of, being broken down and going into the real soil, the real earth, the real matter that's, receiving these seeds and just generating this beautiful garden that, and feeling a lot more liberation as far as what's ahead. That
what is ahead in 2020, Laura?
Well, 2020 is going to be like a massive reset in a lot of ways. In 2021, there's going to be some squared aspects between Uranus and Saturn. So Saturn is just like going through it. Saturn with the conjunction with Pluto and also Jupiter starting a new cycle. So that's the alchemical. Right. And then these structures that are false that still remain, because this is a big cleanup job right now. Uranus, which is like the lightning bolt and an electrical energy that really knocks things out. It's going to make a difficult aspect, which means that anybody who's still hanging on to the remnants of mind control or any of these dark agendas, people that multi-generationally have been investing in what the Matrix has taught us and shown us, is going to be the final round of having that stuff knocked out. For some, it's going to be a lot more painful than others. For some, it's going to be a huge relief. And so there's a lot of people, when I look at their astro chart, that already have that aspect, that have been working that aspect throughout their whole life. So it's not going to be that foreign to people, because everybody's got something that represents this in their chart already. But when we look at it on a collective level, on a more massive scale, basically it's going to be dismantling and breaking and cracking and dissolving and neutralizing and dismantling all attempts of using dark technology to control the human race. And I'm not one to predict, but when I look at the astrological potentials, it's more like, can we stand in alignment with it? Because it's here and it's available. As far as how it's going to look on the world stage, it really depends. But as the crimes against humanity keep, coming up to the surface, and I mean, the passion behind people standing for nothing less than the truth can only grow. Even if they censor people on YouTube, it doesn't matter. There's no way to stop, what's happened. So it was never just going to be a simple spiritual awakening. Everybody's now awoke. We had to really lift up the rock and see what's going on behind these facades. And it's a lot darker than I think any of us could have imagined as far as what these elitists are up to. So, I mean, I think there's still a lot, because we're not just dealing with the humans, we're dealing with off-planet entities. We're dealing with things that I don't think want anything to do with us anymore. They're like, okay, it didn't work. They've been successful in other sectors of the galaxy as far as putting up a net and digressing, beings to the point of them abducting for genetic information. But we're correcting something that is actually going to prevent maybe certain individuals that did walk that timeline and become a digressed, enslaved EBE type or gray. And so there's a lot going on there too. So, I mean, I think as we move forward and what this next phase and cycle is now that the lid has been lifted, now that the veils are thinning, what are we going to do in the face of being exposed or presented with like our galactic heritage? And what is dangerous? What is going to be presented to us? What kind of dynamics are playing out in the political realm to offer something that might feel like the only solution? So if we don't become empowered as humans, we're going to be easily played. We have to understand that we don't need to rely on an outer system. We're working with nature and spirit and the magic of creation in ways that we're not used to. And if we keep creating this dependency, we'll still be easily controlled. And so these are some of the challenges that are going to be coming up for us. How much are we still relying on something outside of us? And how much are we really able to recognize our powers of manifestation, our powers of being able to heal, our powers of being able to regenerate and get our needs met through cosmic and natural laws instead of man-made laws that are based on a reward system or based on who are you fighting for and how much do you believe in it, to the point where you might forget yourself. So that's all going to be the next growth period, I feel.
Amazing stuff. This is really an exciting time to be alive. Almost maybe the most exciting. It's just powerful. And Laura, I feel so energized. I feel so excited. And I'm always that way. You've got me to another level. I appreciate that. And thank you for it. And so many people in the chat room saying the same thing. Now, if people want to get a reading from you or take advantage of some of your other services, please tell them where they can get a hold of you, Laura.
Okay, well, my website's cosmicgaia.org, and I'm mostly just working with subscribers. It's $15 a month. It comes with discounted sessions. It comes with podcasts. It comes with a weekly newsletter talking about what's going on astrologically, how it relates to timelines and where we are. And then, I take 15-minute calls that come with a subscription, no more than once a month, not necessarily for every month, but people might need a little maintenance or check in to see what's going on with the transits with their personal, chart. So I think it's, really worth it for, what it is, but I don't want others that don't want to subscribe feel like they're not able to get a session if they really want it. So the best thing to do is just check out my website. And if you want to message me personally and come up with some sort of arrangement, you can message me at cosmicgaiasubscribers@gmail.com. But I also have a feature on my bookings page that says, if you want to talk about a package or a longer reading, there's a free 15-minute consultation to maybe work out something, whether you're a subscriber or not. So sorry, that's a big mouthful, but yeah, because it's such a powerful tool. And there's a lot of different ways to work astrology, depending on the intent behind the astrologer. My goal is to really help to switch on dormant DNA, to help a person feel really aligned and empowered, and to know, what needs to be cleared, and to help them make sense out of maybe the symptoms they're experiencing, and help them to see where a lot of the just because there's 12 houses, 12 sectors of our life where things play out. And to eventually kind of liberate us from these patternings so that we, really don't feel like, we're at the mercy of, some of these forces. But really, this is our higher and lower self learning to integrate. This is our masculine and feminine learning to come into balance. And so any sort of thing coming out of left field is most often than not a blessing. Even if, there's an attack, it just pushes us to rise above it, to be senior to these lower energies, and to build a stronger shield of protection. And I know a lot of people are feeling isolated, and I want to be more interactive as best as I can. So yeah, I really appreciate you having me on. I love your background. And
And Laura, I hope that, I have to say this, and maybe I shouldn't say it, but I know that you've got a lot of great subscribers and you do a lot of great work, and $15 just simply isn't enough for what you do. So I hope some of your subscribers will be motivated to give above and beyond, because you're getting so much more than $15 worth of value, and try to maintain the exchange, a good exchange. So be very good to Laura, because she's being very, very good to you. And Laura, it's an honor and a privilege to have you here. And I hope that we all can have you back again real soon to talk about some more of this great stuff.
Oh, that sounds great. Well, thank you so much for having me.
Okay, please sit there just 1 second so I can say goodbye to you personally. To all of you that are in the chat room, we thank you so much for being here, seeking after truth. There's not much else to add to what Laura has said, but go to her website, which is cosmicgaia.com, right?
Or org.
Cosmicgaia.org to find out more about Laura Eisenhower. Thanks, Laura, for being here, and thanks to the rest of you for being here in the chat room. We'll see you again real soon.
Thanks, everybody.